dispute with Qatar at a major summit in Saudi Arabia. Representatives from Gulf countries, including the Emir of Qatar, have gathered in the city of Aljazeera. It follows a move by Saudi to open its air, sea and land borders to Qatar in what's being seen as a big step towards resolving an illegal blockade on the country. Delegations from Oman, Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait and Egypt are also attending. Earlier, Qatar's Emir, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, was greeted by Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman with an embrace. It marked one of the most important moments in relations between the Gulf countries in recent years.
Today we are in a dire need to stand united in the face of the challenges, namely Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile programs and other agendas adopted by its respected arms in the region, which undermine the stability of the region. This demands that we dovetail our efforts with the international community to cement the stability and security of the region.
Well, we've got several correspondents on this story. Heidi Jo Castro's in Washington, D.C. She's going to have the latest out of the U.S. for us. Mohammed Val is at the Qatari-Saudi border. We're going to be speaking to them in just a few minutes. First, let's go to Jamal El-Shayal. Jamal, it's important to note, isn't it, that this is just the beginning of a process. This isn't actually ending anything.
Of course, I mean, it's a beginning of a process to try and heal what essentially the damage that's been caused over the past 3.5 years, to try and rebuild trust amongst the GCC countries and to try and maybe find a new way in resolving differences between the member states of the Gulf Cooperation Council. It is ending the blockade in the sense of the physical prevention of things coming to and out of Qatar. Saudi Arabia announced that it was opening its airspace, its land border and maritime border with Qatar. The understanding is that the declaration of Al-Ula, which was signed by all leaders, will pave the way for the other 3 members of that blockading quartet to do the same. So in that respect, it will end. But it is a process. It's a long process. You're talking about legal cases that were filed by Qatar against those quartets in different courts around the world. When will those cases be, maybe when Qatar will rescind those legal cases? You're talking about a large-scale media war that took place and a war of misinformation. We saw it through the hacking of the Qatar news agency, as well as the false news that was constantly pushed out by many of the blockading countries' medias about Iranian Revolutionary Guards in Qatar and other things like that. You're talking about an economic war that was taking place, essentially everything but a military confrontation, which was also on the cards were it not for the late Kuwaiti Emir Sheikh Sabah Al-Ahmad Al-Sabah. So there is a long process to try and remedy all of those things. But for now, all those leaders will focus on the declaration that was signed in Al-Ula, which reaffirms what they say is their commitment to the unity of the GCC, the reaffirmation of the importance of a united bloc in this region to try and establish more stability and security for the people of the Gulf.
Jamal, thank you very much indeed. Jamal Al-Shayal covering that for us in Doha. I want to speak now to Mohammed Val. As I mentioned, he's at the Qatari-Saudi border, and really where you are is key to all of this. This is where we might start to see the first evidence of the restrictions being lifted.
That's right, Rob. We've been here since the very morning, and everyone, both in Qatar and in the other GCC countries, are waiting to see this border crossing open, because it is the only land border linking Qatar to the outside world, and it is linking Qatar, of course, to Saudi Arabia. 3 years this place has been empty. Today, nothing really has changed except that lots of policemen here, and they seemingly are preparing the ground. We have seen them, these booths behind me, trying to fix things, you know, dusting the cameras and dusting off the cameras and offices and paperwork and so on. They told us they haven't yet received any people coming from Saudi Arabia or leaving. They are waiting for more instructions, more clarity to the situation, particularly that under COVID restrictions and COVID circumstances, it's not easy to cross, not as easy as before, and there have to be more formalities. Doctors have to be here, they have to have their equipments, arrangements have to be done for people coming, and that hasn't yet started as far as we can notice. So probably next few days, but today at least it's not that active, this place, still not active. But as you said, people are watching, they are waiting. This is very crucial because it is a lifeline for many people who have been trading or doing business here and there on both sides of the border. People also with families, and that's the social and the human side of the situation. Painful separations happened 3 years ago, and some of those people haven't been able to really comfortably join their relatives, and that's what probably will trigger a lot of movement at this border crossing during the next few days. And that's going to be the sign, as you said, of the real implementation on the ground of the agreement today.
Mohammed, thanks very much indeed. Mohammed Val talking to us from the Qatar-Saudi border. I want to speak now to Heidi Jo Castro. She's in Washington, D.C. for us. A lot has been made of the influence that Kuwait has played in the negotiations, but we of course can't forget that the U.S. has played a significant role in this as well.
That's right. In particular, Jared Kushner, the senior White House advisor and, of course, son-in-law to President Donald Trump. Kushner was leading the team that really got the breakthrough in resolving this dispute. We're told by the White House that this breakthrough happened about a month ago when Kushner and 2 other senior aides were in the region helping to mediate the negotiations, that there was yesterday leading up to the signing a miscommunication that threatened to derail the entire deal, that Kushner had to be on the phone himself to iron that out. And once it was done, he was on the plane going to Saudi Arabia, and we just saw him present during that signing. Now, of course, Kushner, his team, and the Trump administration are going to spin this as a victory, particularly the last few days of the Trump administration, and to cap off a string of diplomatic victories that was helped by U.S. mediation in Israel normalizing its diplomatic relations with several Arab states. However, there's also a good share of criticism that the Trump administration bears some of the responsibility in fanning these tensions and generating, in a sense, this conflict in the first place. Donald Trump's close relationship to Saudi Arabia, giving its crown prince cover, even after the assassination of journalist Jamal Khashoggi, and not condemning Saudi Arabia's role in the civil war in Yemen. All of those things are possibly contributing to the tensions here. Finally, in the last 15 days of his administration, however, having this deal signed certainly would add to Trump's legacy, not only being in office at the beginning of this blockade, but also apparently nearing its end.
Heidi, thanks very much indeed. That's Heidi Jo Castro bringing us up to date from Washington, D.C. Let's talk to Mashoud Zouairi. He's director of the Gulf Studies Centre at Qatar University here in Doha. He's joining us now on Skype. Thanks, as always, for being with us on Aljazeera. How much of a tough sell is this going to be for Saudi Arabia to the other members of the GCC who are not as enthusiastic about the potential for this as Saudi Arabia might be?
Well, I think Saudi Arabia appears to represent the other 3 blockade countries and basically leads in that, saying, Riyadh represent the other states, assuming that, there was a deal behind closed door that, that this how things should be done. I think what we are watching in the last 24 hours is very interesting after 3 years and a half. But I think what is important is what will be happening in a few days or a few months, and how to build on this, success, with a quick success, actually, in less than 12 hours.
They do have a long way to go, though, don't they? Because there was this 13-point list of demands that the blockading countries wanted from Qatar. Qatar, for its part, had its own entrenched position that it refused to move from. Obviously, we don't know the details of whatever may have been discussed behind closed doors. Is there anything that you can see that might have allowed this to take place, this movement to edge forward?
That's an excellent question. My assessment is the following. The whole crisis started under different geopolitics and international political situation where Trump came to the White House. Trump was in favor of Riyadh and Abu Dhabi. there was a plan that things will be changed. Republicans more close to Riyadh. Things were changing on the favor of Riyadh and Abu Dhabi and Bahrain. Now, for the same circumstances, we see the change. Trump is leaving the White House, a new president coming to Washington, and one of the main reasons I think, which to me is helping me to understand what's happening, is the fact that without the change in the White House, without this political change globally, without what's happening even related to coronavirus, I don't think so we will reach to this point. So there was a collective elements pushed to this to happen today on the 5th of January 2021. So we have to look how much the circumstances will push to more, I would say, unity, to more collaborations between the GCC countries. There is no doubt that a united GCC is in favor of its own countries, it's in favor of the world, in favor of Washington. But I think this also needs a contribution from the world to keep this unity and also to push to reduce the level of tension rather than pushing toward the tension, which we witnessed under Trump in the first year of his presidency in the White House.
Creating unity and reducing the tension requires trust. One would imagine that trust in this case can't just happen overnight. There's going to be a significant amount of underlying suspicion on both sides, isn't there? And that's going to take a long time, really, to overcome.
That is absolutely right. I mean, 3 years of, war of media. Just imagine the role of media and social media. How much hatred being created? How much, media content was, poisoned media content was broadcast everywhere. So I think there was a lot to be done to heal all of these, stories and bring people or help people to forget, because all of these all of these stories, all of this misinformation through social media, there is a lot of effort and the trust need to be created. And one of the most and the first step is actually reducing this level of misinformation and the role of social media, pushing more positive messages to help to move on beyond these 3 years and help people to forget. This will need a lot of work. This will need a lot of collective efforts, and this will need also goodwill from all sides, so they can help to diffuse this kind of tension and bring more stability to the region, which will be benefited for all parties.
Really good to get your thoughts on this, Majroub Zawahiri. We appreciate it as always. Thank you very much indeed.
My pleasure, anytime.
Plenty more ahead on the News Hour, including the presidential election may be over in Central African Republic, but some fear the violence will continue. Once a success story, now Thailand is ramping up coronavirus restrictions to contain a new outbreak. And Scottish football champions Celtic are criticised for travelling to Dubai for training as the country goes into lockdown. Joe's going to have all the details in sport.